At a London train station, security guard Joe finishes his shift and finds a letter saying he didn't get the promotion he wanted. Frustrated, he crumples it up. His supervisor then asks him to cover the night shift because the usual guard is sick. Joe wants to refuse but agrees when he learns his crush, Helen, will be working the snack cart that night. After the train departs, Joe starts checking passengers' tickets. Most cooperate, but several are rude and annoyed. When an elderly woman drops her cane, Joe helps her and is startled by a sudden growl, only to realize it came from her dog. Kate claims she lost her ticket and gets angry when Joe finds her. Meanwhile, Billy changes into more comfortable clothes. Joe also notices an out-of-service restroom leaking water. Later, Joe finally works up the courage to ask Helen out, but she rejects him. To make matters worse, passenger Paul watches the awkward exchange. As the train rolls through the rainy countryside under a full moon, everything remains calm until a loud scream echoes through the cars. The train suddenly stops in the middle of a forest. Joe moves through the cars to investigate and spots a shadow behind a door. Just as he's about to open it, the loudspeaker startles him. The driver announces that the train has hit something on the tracks and asks everyone to stay calm. Joe opens the door and discovers Helen's snack cart has tipped over. He struggles to lift it until Adrian steps in to help. While cleaning up, Joe finds 2 sets of keys on the floor and is surprised when Adrian claims both belong to him. With passengers beginning to panic, Joe does his best to keep everyone calm. He tries contacting the driver, Tony, over the radio, but gets no response, so he uses the intercom to reassure the passengers. Outside, Tony inspects the tracks and finds that the train struck a deer, which is now trapped beneath the wheels. As he struggles to free it, he hears a strange noise behind him. Turning around, he is suddenly attacked by a mysterious creature. The beast tears into him and blood splatters across the train window, but the rain quickly washes it away before anyone inside notices. Back on the train, Joe gets tired of waiting and uses his keys to enter the control cabin, only to find it empty. He looks outside but can't find Tony anywhere. After asking Helen to calm the passengers with free snacks, Joe takes another look outside but still sees nothing. Joe contacts the railway rescue team and learns they're delayed because the storm has caused multiple accidents. The signal is weak and full of static, but he manages to find out they'll arrive in 4 hours. When Joe tells the passengers about the delay and reveals that the driver is missing, panic spreads through the train. The complaints become so loud that Adrian has to shout everyone into silence. He points out that there's no phone signal and suggests walking to the next station for help. Joe argues that it's dangerous and worries about losing his job, but the passengers turn against him. Outnumbered, he reluctantly agrees to lead them. Soon, Joe unlocks the doors and the group forms a line beside the train, unaware that something is watching them from the forest. After a while, they hear movement in the bushes. Joe and Helen go to investigate and make a horrifying discovery: Tony's mutilated body lying on the ground. They rush back and warn everyone to return to the train immediately as distant howls and growls echo through the forest. It takes Joe several tense seconds to unlock the door, and the terrified passengers scramble inside. An elderly couple falls behind. Just as they're climbing aboard, the monster lunges forward and bites Jenny's leg. The creature violently shakes her between the doors before the group finally drags her inside and locks the carriage. Helen cleans Jenny's wound with water and does her best to bandage it. Meanwhile, Billy and Matthew shine a flashlight through the windows but can't see anything outside. Moments later, the monster slams into the train and growls from outside. The passengers freeze and stay completely silent. They listen as its claws scrape across the metal carriage. Only after the distant sound of a howl fades into the night do they dare speak again. Joe heads to the control cabin and tries using the train's phone, but there's no signal. At that moment, Billy joins him and reveals that he's an engineering student. After inspecting the controls, Billy discovers a fuel leak caused by the collision, which ruptured a critical line. Unless it's repaired, the train will never move again. Outside, it's revealed that the train's antenna has been torn apart, suggesting the creature deliberately cut off communication. Suddenly, strange noises echo from another carriage. Fearing the monster has gotten inside, Joe grabs a fire extinguisher and, along with Billy and Adrian, cautiously investigates. They follow the sounds to a restroom. As Adrian prepares to attack, Joe unlocks the door and Paul unexpectedly tumbles out. It turns out he'd been trapped inside since before the crash. After hearing the entire story, Paul isn't terrified, he's just disappointed that he missed his stop. Later, the group checks on Jenny and realizes her condition is getting worse. Her wound looks infected, and she's running a fever. Nearby, Kate notices a frightened young girl named Nina and tries to comfort her. Without warning, the creature slams against the train again before leaping onto the roof. The impact causes the lights to flicker and fail. At that exact moment, Nina's phone suddenly picks up a signal and she receives a call from her mother. As Nina desperately tries to ask for help, the monster crashes through a window. The beast grabs Nina by the legs and drags her outside while she screams in terror. Kate lunges for her hand, but Matthew pulls Kate back, knowing they would both be taken. Seconds later, the group hears the creature tearing Nina apart on the roof. Blood streaks across the windows as everyone watches in horror. Terrified, the survivors flee into another carriage. Kate breaks down, furious that nobody tried to save Nina. An argument erupts until Jed, Jenny's husband, shouts everyone into silence and reminds them that survival depends on working together. The passengers find a toolbox and begin reinforcing the carriage. Using parts from the train itself, they barricade every door, window, and possible entry point. As the hours drag on, morale sinks lower and lower. During a quiet moment, Jenny and Kate realize they never even learned Nina's name until now. Jenny then confesses that she always wanted children, but was never able to have any. Elsewhere, Adrian speaks privately with Joe and finally explains why he carries 2 sets of keys. He's been living a double life. Adrian believes survival means doing whatever is necessary, no matter how ruthless. He proposes that he and Joe escape together and leave the weaker passengers behind to fend for themselves. Before Joe can respond to Adrian's offer, Jenny suddenly vomits a large amount of blood along with 2 of her teeth. Another argument breaks out, but it ends when Joe realizes Paul is missing and one of the barricades has been moved. Adrian wants to seal the door immediately, but Joe and Billy convince him to give them a minute to find Paul. Joe searches the next carriage and discovers Paul trapped inside the restroom again. As he struggles to open the door, the restroom light shatters and the beast crashes through the ceiling, attacking Paul. Joe is forced to back away as the door is damaged. Moments later, blood begins pouring through the gaps. When Joe manages to peek inside, he's horrified to see Paul's mangled corpse. He rushes back toward the others, only to discover that Adrian has blocked the door, leaving him stranded. While Joe desperately pushes against it, he sees the monster closing in. At the last second, the passengers open the door and pull him inside before sealing it again. As everyone piles furniture against the entrance, Adrian tries smashing a window with a fire extinguisher to escape, but the glass won't break. Then disaster strikes. The beast tears through the barricade with brute force. Helen freezes in terror, but Joe reacts instantly and shoves her out of danger. The creature turns its attention to Joe, growling inches from his face. Gathering her courage, Helen lunges forward and stabs the monster. Enraged, it throws her across the carriage. The distraction gives the others an opening, and they swarm the creature, punching, kicking, and stabbing it from every direction. Billy is grabbed by the throat and nearly killed, but Adrian slams a fire extinguisher into the monster's wound, forcing it to release him. At that moment, Matthew arrives carrying a fire axe and repeatedly hacks into the beast until it finally collapses. Kate has to restrain Matthew as he suffers an emotional breakdown after the brutal fight. As the survivors examine the corpse, they notice a ring on its finger. The creature looks disturbingly human. Matthew pieces it together and realizes the truth. The monster is a werewolf. Adrian then reminds everyone of the terrifying legend that people bitten by werewolves can transform as well. Instantly, all eyes turn toward Jenny and her infected wound. While the group covers the body, Jed tells an old local story about a train that derailed in the same area years ago. Investigators found mutilated and missing passengers, but no explanation was ever discovered. Jed believes the werewolves were responsible for those deaths too. Just when everyone thinks the nightmare is over, the creature suddenly opens its eyes and lets out a chilling howl. Joe immediately smashes its face with the fire extinguisher until it stops moving. Deep in the forest, the howl echoes through the night. Other werewolves hear the dying call of their leader and begin moving toward the train. Suddenly, Jenny's face begins to distort and she starts growling. Adrian insists they kill her before the transformation is complete, but Jed refuses. The other passengers side with him and hold Adrian back. Desperate, Adrian breaks free and starts choking Jenny, only for Joe to knock him down with a punch. To prevent further chaos, the group decides to tie up both Adrian and Jenny. They then come up with a plan. Billy will repair the train while teaching Helen which controls to use so she can get it moving the moment power is restored. Joe makes an announcement over the intercom, trying to keep everyone's spirits alive. Outside, Billy and Matthew climb beneath the train to repair the fuel line. Billy gets to work while Matthew stands guard. Back inside, Kate reveals that she once had a fling with Adrian, though he doesn't even remember it. At the same time, Jenny's condition worsens as she struggles to breathe, and Adrian keeps insisting they must deal with her before it's too late. Suddenly, Matthew hears a strange sound from the forest. Instead of staying at his post, he follows it, leaving Billy alone in the dark. Deep among the trees, Matthew hears Nina's voice crying for help. He follows it only to discover her mutilated corpse hanging from a tree while a werewolf feeds on it. Horrified, he turns to run, but more werewolves emerge from the darkness and surround him. Matthew swings his fire axe and fights back, but he's hopelessly outnumbered. The pack leaps on him and tears him apart alive. Back on the train, everyone hears Matthew's screams, followed by a loud, haunting howl. Moments later, Billy successfully repairs the train and the lights flicker back on. Joe and Helen scramble to figure out the controls while werewolves begin closing in. Billy hides beneath the train until the monsters move away. Several werewolves suddenly appear outside the front window, startling Joe and Helen. In a panic, they finally manage to activate the train. As the train lurches forward, Billy barely manages to grab hold and avoid being left behind. At that exact moment, Jenny completes her transformation into a werewolf. Kate rushes to free Adrian before Jenny can break loose. Adrian tries to help Jed reason with his wife, but the transformed Jenny knocks him aside. Then another werewolf bursts into the carriage and grabs Kate. Without hesitation, Adrian shoves both Kate and the creature out of the moving train. As the train speeds away, Kate is left behind and quickly becomes prey for the pack. Meanwhile, Jed desperately tries to reach the human side of his wife. Adrian battles the transformed Jenny, repeatedly striking her with a wrench. Furious, Jed punches Adrian before he can kill Jenny, but it's already too late. Jenny lunges at her husband and tears into his neck with a vicious bite. As chaos erupts, Billy struggles to hold onto the moving train and accidentally damages the repairs he made, causing the train to stop once again. Joe and Helen rush in and stab Jenny before she can finish off Adrian. Enraged by everything Adrian has done, Joe jumps on him and starts beating him, but Helen pulls him away. At that moment, the werewolves seize their chance and begin breaking into the train. Joe and Helen race to secure the doors, but Adrian realizes he'll have a better chance of surviving if someone else is left behind as bait. He suddenly knocks Joe down. The attack isn't enough to keep Joe down, and a brutal fight breaks out between the two men. While they're struggling, Helen grabs a sharp piece of metal and slashes Adrian until he releases Joe. Adrian then blocks their path, steals the keys, and jumps off the train. The werewolves quickly surround Joe and Helen. Just as it seems they're doomed, Billy appears carrying a Molotov cocktail. He hurls it at one of the werewolves, setting it ablaze. Then he lights a torch, frightening the rest of the pack, and hands Joe and Helen an iron bar. Using the opening Billy creates, Joe and Helen force open a door and escape from the train. Billy stays behind and is overwhelmed by the werewolves, sacrificing himself so his friends can get away. As Joe and Helen run through the forest, they hear the pack closing in. Realizing they won't both make it, Joe stops and kisses Helen. He tells her to keep running while he stays behind as a distraction. Tears in her eyes, Helen continues towards safety while Joe turns to face the werewolves. He manages to stab one of them, but the pack eventually overwhelms him and bites him. A short time later, Helen reaches the next train station carrying Joe's name badge, making it clear she is the sole survivor. Meanwhile, Adrian continues fleeing through the forest. Suddenly, he finds himself surrounded by werewolves. Before he can escape, the newly transformed Joe leaps out of the darkness and attacks him, and that's how the movie ends.